All right. Says we're streaming.
All right, let's see if I get the notifications.
Oh, okay. So
Oh,
says
oh,
Facebook's going. Says YouTube's going.
YouTube's going. Okay. I don't know if we've got it set up. If I got Twitch notifications set up.
All right, we're on there. Oh, yeah, there goes YouTube.
Yeah, favorite terrain, episode 11.
Oh,
Yeah, favorite terrain, episode 11.
mute that.
Two. Yeah, favorite terrain, episode.
It's the echo. Try to remember to cut all this flab off the beginning for the podcast form.
Oh yeah, absolutely, yeah.
All right,
I usually get right up to the thing, and that's when I go from there.
Good deal.
But I am getting notifications of people liking us on different platforms, so maybe this was a good idea.
Are you? Okay.
I saw somebody like the video on Facebook, and I'm like, hey. On Facebook, and I'm like, hey.
Okay, yeah, we're all over the place.
We are.
Welcome everybody. Oh yeah, we've got 3 over on Facebook. It says 1 on YouTube. We're trying something new. Welcome everybody. We're streaming on all the platforms, so it feels like the old days when we used to party down with Nerd Cave, and we'd be on Facebook and Twitch and YouTube and all
and
the
we'd
things.
be on all of their things at the same time. Like, man, we used to get out there.
Yeah.
We say that like it was so long ago. It was really like what, 6 months? Like,
is it really?
Like, well, I mean, we did all that last summer, so it really wasn't that long ago.
This last year has been rough.
It's been a heck of a year. It's been up and down and all over the place. But hey, we're being taken care of, thank God.
Yeah. Well, welcome. We have I'm curious to see how this episode goes of favorite terrain. We rolled the picker wheel last episode.
Yes.
And we got Monster Manual, and I think we've kind of condensed it down or made it to just about monsters.
Yeah, because we were kind of talking about it, and it's like, well, you could do the Monster Manual, but then you could do Mordenkainen's Tome of Foes and Mordenkainen's Monsters of the Multiverse and Volo's Guide to Fiendish Folio. I mean, there are a lot of books specifically geared toward monster encounters. So we were like, we could drag this out and do the same episode about 8 times, or we could just talk about monsters. But of course, we decided that certain monsters are going to be sort of off the table for this one. We're gonna leave that for like their own episodes, and these are like the quintessential monsters. Like, we're gonna have a dragons episode, and I think you and I said we really want to do like a hag episode.
Oh, I love hags.
Yeah, just those really, really fun, deep in the mythos kind of monsters. We're gonna have their own thing. This is just the broad net of monsters in D&D.
Yep. Yeah. I'm excited.
I'm super excited.
Yeah. So I'm sitting here clicking around. I don't have a clue how to get to the back end of our Facebook. It's been so long.
That's well, a lot of stuff has changed. So you might want to do that at another time.
Yeah. Okay. As long as we got chat, I won't get notifications or anything, but that's okay. That'll be for next time.
Yeah, we'll work on all that.
So, all right. Well, again, this episode is brought to you by our Patreon, where you can go and support this podcast and all of our D&D related content. We're more than just a podcast, even though that's our main thing right this second. So if you want to go check that out, and all of our really fun creative tiers that we've just revamped, you should go do that. And in doing so, if you become a patron, you get to suggest a topic for our podcast, and we'll talk about that. So that's exciting.
It is. It's very exciting.
Do you know a Party Rock University?
What?
I don't know. Somebody on Facebook just liked the video called Party
Oh,
Rock
hey,
University.
are you mad that we got likes?
No. Mm-mm.
All right then.
Yeah.
Sorry for party rocking.
Party rocking. Yeah, so I guess we could just hop into it.
Yeah, I mean, we kind of got all the intro stuff out of the way. I can't think of anything specific we got to do.
Yeah, and I'm breaking out my hard copy today for this episode.
Way to flex on them. Nerd flex, everybody. Nerd flex.
Well, if you want a real nerd flex, I've got 3 copies of the Monster Manual.
You probably had more at a certain point because you gave me one.
Yeah, yeah. Somebody donated to me because they know I did D&D for kids and my students and different groups. I don't know, but they're like, "Hey, here, somebody was getting rid of these. You can have them." So,
and you're like, yeah.
So, yeah. Well, I'm breaking out the hard copy because, I don't know. There's something the way that it's laid out, being able to look at the actual monster table and all the big printed images of the monsters, and kind of some of them have a little bit of backstory and lore.
There is, yeah. There's no digital form of that. None.
Well, I mean, they've got the same content, yes, but it's just not laid out as pretty. Like, you have to click on the little tiny icon for the...
There is more work. I'll give you that. There's more work. In the book, it's all right there. But remember, Travis, you are currently holding the legacy version of all of those monsters now. So,
I mean, is there really that big of a difference, though?
No, I just did a comparison between 2 monsters, and it's like they might have cut out like one minor ability. It doesn't seem much different, honestly.
I gotcha. Okay. Yeah, well, because I know they did all the playable races are a lot different, but okay, cool. Well, where do you want to start with monsters, Mr. Fellow DM?
I mean, it's so hard because there are, like, if I'm on the D&D Beyond site and you just go to monsters, there's 124 pages.
Okay, I was going to say monsters. I feel like there's more than.
Oh, there's way more than that. There's way more than that. But I just sorted them by challenge rating by CR. There are 5.5 pages of just level 0 monsters. There are so many monsters at this point, because you also got to remember some of these monsters have been around since like first edition D&D, and they just keep getting updated and rehashed. So yeah, if you think about it in that scope of things, Wizards of the Coast and Dungeons and Dragons, even before they were Wizards of the Coast, has been building this library of monsters since like the 70s.
Yeah.
So they've been at it a really long time. And I think it's cool that they've hung on to all these things, because you can find literally stats for almost anything. Like random levels, CR0, Weasel.
Yeah.
Weasel. It has an hit point. 1.
Yeah.
If you look at a weasel wrong, it's gonna die.
Yeah. That's funny. Like, that brings up a good point. The weasel, CR0, 1 hit point or whatever. In the introduction for the monster manual printed, and I think it's online as well, it says, "What is a monster? A monster is defined as any creature that can be interacted with and potentially fought and killed. Even something as harmless as a frog or as benevolent as a unicorn is a monster by this definition. The term also applies to humans, elves, dwarves, and other civilized folk who might be friends or rivals to the player characters. Most of the monsters that haunt the D&D world, however, are threats that are meant to be stopped." So forth and so on.
So the term monster is anything that you could fight in D&D.
Yes. Potentially fought and killed.
Yeah. And if you're sitting there and you hear us say things like challenge rating and CR, what a challenge rating is a number designated to each of these monsters or combat encounters that give you an idea of how difficult it is. You calculate a monster CR by adding up the collective levels of your party members and then divide them and get an average, and that is the quote unquote level appropriate CR for your adventurers. Now that's super technical. Let me give you an example. Say I have got, it gets really simple, really. Say I've got 4 level 1 party members. Well, you need to get the average. Add them all up. That is 4. Divide them by how many you have? 4. That is 1. So a level 1 monster is appropriate for a level 1 character. You see what I'm saying here? Right. So pretty much everything like that could be basically whatever a party's level is what the monster should be. Now you could give them easier ones because they even go they don't just go to like 1. There's like we just said, there's 0, then there's 1/8 CR monsters, a 1/4, a 1/2, and then 1 hits. I don't think they go like 3/4 or something like that.
No. Yeah.
So
1/8,
yeah,
1/4, and 1/2.
Yeah, that only becomes an important factor, really, in my experience, when you have people playing different level characters. And you may be wondering, why in God's name would you ever have different level characters? Well, if you're at me as a dungeon master, I can't speak for Travis, but I only give people credit for games they actually play.
Yeah. I haven't had an issue to really have that affect any of my games. But yeah, I would agree with that.
Yeah, see, I go by the milestone progression, which is like, I don't actually keep up with experience points. I've known dungeon masters that like doing that. Hey, if that works for you, that's great. But I don't like that much math. So I just keep track with however many sessions we play, and after an appropriate level, I'll get into this at another episode, I'm sure. But at an appropriate amount of sessions played, I'll give you a level up. And the group I'm running now, there's one player that like hasn't missed a session yet, and he's like 1, maybe 2 levels higher than the other ones because, you know, they just couldn't make it for whatever reason. And so in a weird way, it's sort of like I'm encouraging my players to play and you get rewarded for it. Like he's a little bit stronger than everybody else. Now going back to the CR thing, I have to pay attention to the CRs because if I just went, like, say he's level 8, but they're only level 6, the other ones. If I just throw a level 8 in there, he'll be okay, but that level 8 monster might kill those other 2 people, you know?
Yeah.
So you really have to balance those things out. And it's a little, you know, there's a lot of factors at play here. So that's what we're talking about when we say CR or challenge rating and stuff like that. I've been scrolling through and I'm just getting to the 1/2 CRs and I'm on page 22.
Yeah,
like,
so I did
so many weak monsters.
I did a little calculation because it's showing 20 monsters per page and there's 124 pages, so that's 2,480 monsters just from that rough math. So that's a pretty good bit to choose from. Yeah, so let's kind of, I'm thinking about it like, you know, you can go through here and just any type of monster that you could think of, you'll find something that matches or comes really close to it.
To what you want. Yeah.
To what you want. Yeah. And so, you know, we're obviously not going to sit here and just go through all the monsters, but I kind of want to just approach monsters from the perspective of a DM or somebody who's thinking about DMing, because if I'm building an encounter or if I'm like trying to figure out what my players are going to do next, 90% of the time I'm going to go to the monster manual and figure out like what they're going to fight next, and then start building outward from that. Like excuse me. So like, say, not necessarily like the big bad evil guy for the campaign, but if I know like they're about to go into these woods and there's some nasty hags in these woods, Well, what are they going to counter leading up to those hags? And then what does the forest look like now that the hags have like taken residence and corrupted the forest? And so that corruption spawns other little bad nasties. And it's just kind of like a good place to go. And and another reason I got the hard copy right here in front of me, because I just like to flip through and be like, ooh, what is that? Ooh, that's cool. I've never seen one of those. Or where does that live? What kind of environment does that like to be in? How smart is it? Does it know how to speak? What kind of actions does it have? Does it like live in a community? And then like you could start taking these different aspects and backstories for these characters that they kind of have laid out for you, and start building your encounters from that. So that's kind of like my initial approach to the monster manual is basically like planning out my content.
Yeah, I do that a lot too. I don't think of what monster I want them to fight. Well, I won't say I've never done that, but I have done that before. But I do think about the story, where I'm at, what would make sense for the encounter. Because if you're in the middle of I don't know, you're in a jungle, and then all of a sudden you get like a Yeti, which is a cold environment monster. That wouldn't make any sense. So you try to keep that immersion there. But I have done it before where my characters have been in one particular type of area. They fight a real off the wall character or monster, and some of them actually said, "Wait a minute. This isn't normally in this area. Is something bigger going on here?" So they took the subtle bait of, these creatures aren't in this type of environment. What's going on?
Yeah.
Stuff like that. But yeah, I always think about what type of monsters or encounters would be in this situation, and then I start looking, because they do put monsters in categories, because there's so many of them. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. I think there's like 14 categories altogether.
Ooh.
Yeah, there's more than you think, and you know these. It's aberrations. These are like terrible creatures from the unknown realms that we summon here.
Oh yeah.
Beast. Yeah, these things. Beast, which are like animals or animal-like creatures. Celestials, which are like angels and angelic things. Constructs, which are built things like machines. Dragons have their own category, because there are tons of dragons.
Yeah.
Elementals, things like beings of water, fire, earth, things like that. Fae, which is a very broad category. It's not just fairies, okay? Fiends, which are like demonic or devil things that are summoned from the hells, yada yada. Giants, which are, giants. Humanoid, which is anything that's like a medium creature that has basic humanoid structure. Monstrosities is the one that you come across a lot, because it's just these amalgamated weird creatures that make sense for the world, but they don't have a thing that they're akin to. Then there's oozes, which are like, jellies that will eat you. Plants, pretty straightforward. And then there's undead creatures like zombies, liches, and stuff like that. So I'm sitting there and I'm creating this, and I'm like, all right, so they're gonna. I want them to have some combat in this. So I'm in this place where I'm like, maybe they're fighting some giants, because this is a mountain range known for giants. And I'm looking through, and I pulled up aberrations and giants. That's why it didn't make sense. So I go to the giants, and I'm like, here's some ogres. I'm gonna throw some ogres in there. Stuff like that.
Yeah.
So Travis, do you have I guess it's a go-to monster, but if you're like, hey, we need to shake it up, we need to get into some combat, what's your go-to monster to kind of throw in there? And this might even be something where you like, I don't care about the CR, I'll nerf it or beef it up however I need to. Like, do you have a go-to monster where if someone sits down at your table after a while, they're like, Travis might throw this at us because it's kind of his thing?
Oh man. I feel like it's a predictable answer, but I don't care what level you are, goblins are always fun.
Yeah.
Because, I mean, a regular plain Jane goblin is a CR 1/4. Like, it is not anything. But if you get a horde of these suckers, like, I'm thinking of the dwarves running through the goblin mines in The Hobbit.
Yeah.
And you get a multitude of these things. They're not a joke, and something I kind of wanted to hit on. So CR levels are really good to kind of get an idea how your party is going to fare against a monster. But one thing that I've learned DMing is that, and I don't think this is really written anywhere, but encounters are really difficulty of encounters is really judged off of something called action economy, where let's say you've got a party of 4, they're all level 3, so they're their rating or whatever, say it's CR3 for the group. So you're going to go throw a CR3 or CR4 creature at them. They should be able to handle that just fine. That single creature is going to get devastated because your party of 4, they're going to have 4 turns before that monster gets to go. And if it rolled low in initiative and they get their 4 turns first, you can hang it up. That monster is not going to see the light of day. It's not going to get around in.
It probably won't see the fighter's second attack.
Right. That's 4 characters going, but if you got a monk or a fighter or whatever, like, they're going to get multiple attacks. So you have to really think about how many turns are my monsters going to get in the go of the combat. So if you got a horde of goblins, like, I'm gonna pull back the curtain a little bit, but sure, I'm gonna have my stuff roll initiative, but I'm not gonna let all my monsters go last. If I rolled low in initiative, I'm just gonna okay, you get a turn, and then this goblin's gonna go. You get a turn, and then this goblin's gonna go, and you get a turn. Like, I'm gonna make sure that action economy is as even as I can get it, because one, it's not fun for the players. You may think that, like, oh, they just mowed through these goblins and that was fun. It doesn't stay fun. Like, if there's not a challenge there.
Yeah, it gets old fast.
Yeah. And another example of the action economy. So I've thrown, let's say, like an ancient green dragon at a party. And let's see, an ancient green dragon CR rating is 22. And let's say if all my party members are like 10 or 12 and there's 4 or 5 of them, technically that's a challenging encounter for that party. But at 10 and 12, like, you've got some pretty powerful members, and they can wipe that dragon out before that dragon even gets a turn. And and that's a bad encounter, and that can kind of make a session feel a little depressing, kind of kill the vibe of the session. So for those who want to DM or are DMing or have had issues with it, kind of keep in mind, how can I spread out and make sure that the team's getting actions and my creatures are getting actions in there.
There's a couple of little sneaky ways you could do it. You could always just say they don't die yet. I mean, you're a big proponent. Your hot take on dungeon mastering is you don't care about health points.
Right.
You are very much we'll fight it for an appropriate amount of time, and then it's over. And I for the longest time that shook me up. I'm like, how do you do that? But the more I've dungeon mastered, I'm like, no, I really see that, because one of the things I like to do is reward people for getting the killing blow. Sometimes one person gets all the killing blows, and you're like,
yeah.
So it's stuff like that. But also, so you just ignore HP or give it more HP or whatever. You can also do things like, say you've got level 3 fighters or people or whatever. and they're going to fight this level 3 thing. Well, if there's 3 of them, 3 level 3 fighters, instead of giving them 1 level 3 monster, give them 3 level 3 monsters. Give each one of them a monster to fight, you know? So that way, I mean, they're immediately going to spread out. Like, unless your people are like, we're just going to like curb stomp one monster at a time until we knock it out, which it does happen sometimes. But they will refocus when the other 2 monsters start attacking them, you know? So that's a couple things you could do. Just work with your HP or just give them multiple monsters, you know? Now, if your Seahar gets higher than their level, you don't want to do multiple monsters, you know? Here's the one big bad thing, and we're all going to try our best to do it. But you're right. Like, I've thrown things that I've thought would be like, this is going to be no problem. You know, let's have a legit dragon fight. And then like 3 turns later, you're like, oh no.
Yeah.
You also have to take into into consideration magic items and other things that make your players even more powerful. So you really got to beef it up at a certain point.
Yeah. Yeah, and kind of keeping on that vein, so this is not my original idea. Okay, I'm going to tell you where I got it from in a second, but so very powerful creatures like the ancient green dragon, powerful creatures, you know, past a certain CR level, they start to get things. Every creature has actions, but powerful creatures have actions and legendary actions. And so what legendary actions do, and this kind of helps with that action economy. So say if it's the ancient green dragon's turn, they get their actions, whatever that is described. You know, they get to move, they get to attack however many times, you know, between their physical attacks or their breath attack or magic or whatever. But legendary actions, so a creature gets to take 3 legendary actions in a round. So a round is everybody gets a turn, and that's the end of the round. And the dragon gets to choose when they take it. So let's say if it's the dragon's turn, okay, that's the end of his turn for the round. The fighter goes next. Oh, the dragon decides to take a legendary action. Okay, and so, and just they're nothing special. They're just like detect. He can make a tail attack or a wing attack. So there's stuff he can do already. But I mean, he's a dragon, so he's getting to kind of stop the combat and be like, no, I'm doing this. So that being said, legendary actions are a good answer to that whole action economy thing. And I'm just going to plug it. If you go on YouTube, if you're already on YouTube, you look up Matt Colville. Okay. He's a DM that's been around since basically D&D has been around.
Everybody at Matt and tag us and be like, you should be on Favorite Terrain.
And then, so he's actually coming out. His company's coming out with a monster book right now called Flea Mortals, and he's had like some example content. So like low level characters like goblins. He's like, you get like goblins or something. Take one of them, make him kind of like the boss, and give him some legendary actions. They don't have to be anything extravagant. But if you got a goblin that's kind of calling the shots mid-combat, you know, like he goes and then like one of the players go and then you interrupt. And it's like, okay, this goblin yells at this goblin to go over here and attack this person. And he gets to do that in between turns when it's not his turn. He gets to like, you know, call shots or like tell this goblin to go here or attack this person.
And then that goblin gets to do it basically as a free action.
Right. Yeah, because it's part of that head goblin's legendary action. Anyway, so you can, you know, take that idea and run with it. Matt Colville put that out there. He's got a whole video on action economy and monsters and kind of a different way to look at monsters that way. But that's I live by that rule, so I like to put that out there whenever I can because when you throw a Tarrasque at a party of like level 18 characters and they kill it within like the first 2 rounds, it makes you think about how you're running your encounters. And I know the Tarrasque in 5th edition is nothing compared to the Tarrasque previous versions.
Yeah.
From what I've read, but still is a Tarrasque. I'm still bitter about that.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Because that can totally wipe out your whole thing. Cody in the chat made a really good point. He said multi-classing can also make it necessary to up CR levels because like we've learned over the years of playing D&D that when you multi-class and play different types of characters under one roof, as it were, they kind of work together real well in some instances, and then it can really jack up some stuff and make a character who's not breaking any rules feel like they're breaking the rules. He's using an example: a paladin and a rogue. Have you ever seen a paladin rogue combo, Travis?
I have not.
I have, and let me tell you, it's freaking terrifying because they get sneak attack on smites.
Ooh.
Think about it, man.
Think about it.
It's crazy. Cody's bringing this up because he's playing one of those in my campaign right now, and he always looks at me like, "I'm sorry, this is legit. I swear." I'm like, "I believe you. I just gotta remember." So he did 218 damage in one attack one time. So it gets stupid fast. So you have to think about those kinds of things. Like, I know that our paladin assassin is going to be bonkers in a fight. So I can throw really hard creatures at these people, and there's an inherent threat there because he's still super powerful. Like, his HP is no different. You know, it's not like he's like super great at attacking and his HP went up. So the threat is still there, but like you said, if you want your monster to do more than one round of attacking, you know. So yeah, you gotta take into consideration what your players can do and knowing their abilities. That's why it's very important for you and your players to be upfront and open with each other. Like, hey, this is what I can do. Don't try to get one over on each other. Have a good time. Do the game right. All those good things. So yeah, you can't beat a group of gobos. Good old gobos.
218 damage. Shut up. Get out of here, Cody.
Nobody it happened. I was there. I can vouch for him. It actually happened. I'm sure we can bring him on at one episode and we can be like, let's just talk about this paladin assassin here.
Yeah.
And it was insane. It was insane. The first time he did it, I'm like, explain yourself, sir. You know. But he did. So I'm like, okay, all right. I will remember that moving forward. Now there's a horde of zombies instead of 3. You know, like you make those decisions in the moment. Yeah.
Yeah. So, do you have a go-to monster?
I lean towards 2. One is just fun for me, and the other is if I want to remind my characters that I could destroy their world. One is giants. I love giants. I love the feeling you get being a normal sized creature and you're taking down this big boss looking thing, you know. So I love fighting giants. I love throwing giants in there because when you take one down, you feel powerful, you know. So I like the feeling it gives players when you take down a giant, especially if you start out with like low level hill giants and stuff like that. But when you start throwing like frost giants and different things like that, and they take those down, you feel really good about yourself and your players do. The other one that I love to throw in there just to remind them is a ooze.
Oh, I love a gelatinous cube.
A gelatinous cube is great, but I have one that I like to use even more so. It's where did it go? Let me see if I can find it. It's a gray ooze.
Oh yeah, those are gnarly.
Yes, they are. One, they're huge. I have actually used small gray oozes. Cody said a black ooze is pretty gnarly. It is. But a gray ooze can can do all kinds of weird stuff. And if I'm thinking, oh yeah, what I did one time is they were like delving these ruins and stuff like that, and they came across a statue, you know, and they were like, oh, statue, cool, and they start poking around at it and stuff like that. Well, I have a gray ooze from the cracks in the statue, because it can do that. It can get right in the middle of tiny cracks, like up to an inch thin, and just blend in with any kind of stonework. So this gray ooze comes out, and one of the things that a gray ooze has, it's an ability called Corrode Metal. Any non-magical weapon made of metal that hits the ooze corrodes. After dealing damage, the weapon takes a permanent and cumulative -1 penalty to damage rolls. If its penalty drops to -5, the weapon is destroyed. Non-magical ammunition made of metal that hits the ooze is destroyed after dealing damage. The ooze can eat through 2-inch thick non-magical metal in 1 round. I destroyed everyone's favorite armor that day.
Yeah.
Because I'm like, this thing just like gets bigger and tries to engulf you, and it starts eating through your metal. And of course, they're out in the middle of nowhere, so their AC tanked out, and they had to like get new armor once they got to a city. It was a lot of fun, because they were like, oh yeah, wow. It was great. I think for flavor, I remember one character, just for flavor reasons, I'm like, your armor's still there, but you've got like this massive circular hole right in the middle, and we can see your chest, you know, like it's stuff like that. So yeah, I love an ooze to flex on my players a little bit. And I like a giant just because it makes you feel good to fight.
Yeah.
Do you have? I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No, go ahead.
No, I was just gonna say, do you have a monster that you know about, but you feel like if more people knew about, they should use it more?
Yeah, I think I can roll with that.
Yeah.
Well, yeah.
I'm putting you on the spot for these things, so I can vamp for time. I'm like, we need to talk about monsters specifically.
No, this is good. Okay, I'm gonna do 2. Because I have a good story about one of them, but ropers. You know what a roper is?
Oh yes, I do know what these things are.
Yes, they are creatures that disguise themselves as like stalactites.
Yes,
and their big thing is so they climb up on the ceiling, and they look like stalactites, but and they have false appearance. So if they're completely still, you can't tell, what they are. But they have, they basically they just fall on you, or they can, and do fall damage. But they can also pull you up into the air with their little tentacles that they have. Basically keep you there, and just destroy you. They're fun. They're only a CR5, but if you get like a little group of these hanging from the ceiling, bombing the group, or like, pulling the straggler that's kind of walking in last in line, they're pretty fun. I don't see a lot of people use those.
Oh yeah, I do remember these, and I think I remember these because I think you threw one at me one time. And it did throw me off. Like you don't expect this kind of thing, and like its grapple is ridiculous. I'm looking at it right now, and I'm like, it can basically, you really got to get after it. I think you got to make a 15 strength check to get out of it.
Yeah.
All kinds of different things, and the fact it has spider climb, which means it can move around any surface easily.
Yeah.
It does what it wants when it comes to movement.
Actually, okay,
Yeah.
I have to correct myself. I've used ropers. Ropers are not the ones, though, with the dropping attack. They've only got the tentacle, but it's the same idea. They have spider climb. They climb up on the ceiling. They pull you up. But piercers, okay, and piercers, they're only a CR 1/2, okay, but their only action is to drop, Okay, and what's cool about them is they do 1d6 piercing damage per 10 feet fallen up to 66. So this is a CR 1/2 creature, but it can do up to 66 damage just by falling on you.
Oh, yeah, I don't know these things. I just looked it up, and they're disgusting looking.
Yeah, they're...
They almost look like a piercer grows up to be a roper.
Yeah, and it's a little blurry on my screen, but kind of held up the thing there. But yeah, they're basically they're pretty much related. Yeah, and so they got a little bit of lore there. They're a colony type creature, so you will find them in groups. I
searched it on D&D Beyond, and there is a Piercer Ice variant.
Ooh.
Yeah, so it's sort of like if you're in an ice cave, you could do something like that. And it does say a Piercer is the larval form of a roper.
Yeah.
And the two creatures often attack in tandem.
Yeah.
That sounds like a recipe for disaster.
Yeah. Yeah. I had a quest one time where the group came to a city, like a mining city, and villagers were disappearing in the mines, and if they wanted to go check it out, they were going to get paid for it. And it was a bunch of piercers, and then a roper is a large monstrosity, so they're pretty big, but it was a bunch of piercers and a large roper in the final room with some piercers, and that was kind of like a little boss encounter they had to dodge the piercers while taking on the roper and its little tentacles. So those are fun cave encounter creatures that can coexist with whatever else is taking up residence in that cave too. So
yeah,
that's my first one. And my second one are Ettins, and they are a giant, but they're the two-headed giants.
Yes, I love those things.
Okay, and my favorite thing about them is role-playing them, because you've got two personalities, and I will play it up like I will have them arguing in the middle combat with each other. And so in the book, they kind of give a little bio on like the nature of Ettins, and one big thing about them is they're very solitary creatures. So they live by themselves for the most part, but they've got the two heads with the two brains, two personalities. But it does say, where is it, that they will get with another Ettin just to reproduce. Okay, and so I had a combat situation where there was an Ettin in the vicinity. The monster skill's like, hey, go take out this Ettin, bring it back, or at least bring back the heads or something. Let us know you did it. We'll reward you. So they went out, tracked it down, found the Ettin living in this cave, set some traps outside. The Ettin comes out, falls in the traps. I didn't like completely take it out, but oh my gosh, I got somebody in the group that was in this encounter. Okay, so
I was about to be like, Travis, I think we got a troll in the chat, but I'm like, wait.
Yes. Okay. So the one Ettin comes out, and then another Ettin comes out. These are supposed to be solitary creatures, and the other Ettin comes out, and it's the female. And so they're fighting two Ettins, which is it's a two-headed giant. So there's two of these Ettins. They won, but they, after kind of examining the bodies, found out the female was pregnant. And so they made the choice to kind of do like a C-section, kind of like, hey, I don't know why. There's like, they had no problem killing the adults, but I guess they had guilt about, potentially not letting this baby live. They got the baby out, and it starts crying.
Oh my God.
And then they take the baby and they sell it.
Oh my God.
To the Monsters Guild, or whoever would buy a baby.
Okay, this is why we need an episode for the menagerie, because we have let's walk through this. We have no qualms on killing these things, but the moment we found out there's an unborn child, like, that's not okay, let's save the baby. We do all this, and I'm like, Cody, what the heck is a skill check for that? Like, you figure that out, and then you get the baby, and you're like, we saved the child. Good. Let's sell it into slavery. Like, like they just were all over the place, man.
Yeah.
That's so funny.
Yeah, and I'm gonna be honest with you, when it happened, like, and I rolled for all the situations, like, it's a male, a female, is it, was it pregnant? I rolled like evens and odds, and it's like, yeah, it's pregnant. And then, okay, well, let's try to save it. Let's see if we can get the baby out. And they do like a survival check and a medicine check, and we're just like trying their best to like, okay, well, we ain't got to worry about saving the mom's life. Let's just cut it open, get it out. And they did really well on those checks. And I rolled the even odds. Is it alive? Is it not? And it was. And so here they are. And yeah, the rest is history. So.
My God.
But
my God. And that's a great. Go ahead.
No, I was just gonna say, but just the Etten alone, you just need one, and being able to, if you're into role playing and doing voices and having fun with it, like you can go really far with a 2-headed Etten, and just going back and forth, even in the heat of combat, like, I'm gonna smash you, no, smash this one over here, and just getting confused. And especially like if you roll a natural 1 as the Etten, like you can just play it off as like the two get in a fight with each other and get distracted for a moment or something.
Yeah, your player Mad Hatcher said, "Look, no one wanted to take care of the child, and Bird Boy wouldn't feed it. So those nice monster hunters offered a great deal of gold to take it off our hands, and we took it. We are innocent."
I'm not here to judge.
How the justifications start happening after a while. Oh man, that's so great, and that just goes to show you can take something as simple as an encounter, a combat encounter with a monster, creates this amazing little story about just how it went off the rails because someone said, well, now I feel bad. Like, that's great. I absolutely love that. Yeah. That's so good.
Man.
Oh, jeez.
And I'm just like flipping through this book, looking at some creatures, like, yeah, I remember using that one. That one was a lot of fun. And there's tons in here like I've never even touched as a DM.
Yes, and that's just the basic book.
Yeah. Just the basic monsters manual, none of the extra stuff. But yeah, like, I mean, really, your imagination is like, just flip through and find something that looks cool and be like, what can I build around this? I love it. Even these little the Modrons, I don't know if I'm pronouncing that right. The little robo guys, the monodrone, the duodrone, the tridrone, those little...
Oh yeah, like the little wind 'em up dudes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like, I've always wanted to use those, but they apparently only exist in a certain plane. Like it's just a mechanical plane or something. I don't know, but
yeah, well, I have run into one monster that I want to use, but I haven't had the right situation for it, and I'm also kind of hesitant to use it.
What is that?
It's called a Catoblepus.
Cato what the?
Catoblepus. Yeah, let's.
Is that with a K?
Catoblepus. It's Catoblepas. Catoblepus. And they're gnarly looking creatures.
Ooh.
They're only CR5. They're only CR5. And you're like, all right, whatever. They're just this ugly looking creature. It like hangs out in swamps. Its first little thing is stench, which means they smell bad. So you got to make a con save or you vomit for a turn, just little stuff like that. However, under its actions, it has two things. It can make a tail attack where it just sort of like bops you with its tail.
Yeah. And if you're looking at the image, kind of think of a dinosaur with that big, like, ball club tail. Yeah, that's kind of, this thing's got fur, but that's kind of what kind of tail it has.
Yeah, that's kind of what it looks like. And the other thing it can do is its death ray. Let me read you this. This is a CR5 monster now. Listen to this.
Catobleepus.
It's got a recharge of on a 5 or a 6, so it's basically like a breath weapon or an eye ray from a beholder. The Catobleepus targets one creature it can see within 30 feet of it. Okay, so there's a range to it. Still a pretty good ways, though. The target must make a DC 16 Constitution saving throw, taking 8d8 necrotic damage on a failed save, or half as much on a successful one. 8d8.
Yeah.
Holy crap. And there's more. If the saving throw fails by 5 or more, the target instead takes 64 necrotic damage. It takes just like max damage.
Yeah.
And if the target dies because of this ray, if it's reduced to 0 hit points on this ray, it dies. This ray negates death saving throws. If it drops you to 0 using this death ray, your character is dead. There is no death saving throws. So this little weird, unassuming thing.
Yeah. And I had a picture pulled up while you were talking of it on the thing.
It can wreck shop in your party. Because if that thing recharges, forget about it.
Yeah.
Forget about it, man. So I love this creature. I would love to throw it out there, and I know some of my players are watching. So you guys know if I ever figure out a way to work this thing in there, I'm gonna do it. But it kind of terrifies me. You know? It's serious. So yeah, I stumbled across that creature. I heard about it somewhere. I think I heard about it on like a random video or something. I'm like, it's not a real thing. And I went and looked it up, and sure enough, there it was. And I was like, oh my God.
Yeah.
Yep. Oh my gosh. But yeah, that thing, I've always thought, like, why don't we know more about this? Why is this... Like, we know about rust monsters and all the other little weird things, but everyone's sleeping on the Catobleepus.
Yeah. And I'm going to read this later, but it's got a nice little 5-6 paragraphs of, like, background.
Of lore and stuff. This is one of those monsters that have been around since, like, the beginning.
Yeah.
Crazy, man.
Yeah.
Things you learn as a dungeon master.
Yeah, I'm looking through. Oh my goodness! So I probably use the legacy, and I don't know the difference right now. But have you? How familiar are you of the Astral Dreadnought?
Oh, dude, that's like the big bad thing, isn't it?
Yes, it is.
This is like Cthulhu's lapdog out in the middle of space, and he will destroy your world.
Yes. My group was pretty late level. It's only a 21 CR.
I would hope they were later level.
Yeah, and they were traveling through the astral plane on a ship that they hijacked from, I forget the type of elves that live out there. But they had to get through. It's been so long. I feel like the Astral Dreadnought was sent there to guard a portal to get to hell or something like that. Like the astral plane was just kind of like a travel through area, and they had to get past this thing. And that was such a fun fight. And Mad Hattress, if you're still in there, testify for me here. But they have an ability that if they eat, this is a gargantuan sized creature. Like this is like as big as they get. And if it swallows you, its stomach is its own demiplane.
Mm-hmm.
And let's see what it says. Anything the Dreadnought swallows is transported to a demiplane that can be entered by no other means except a wish spell or a Dreadnought's bite or dungeon visit for whatever. A creature can leave the demiplane only by using magic that enables planar travel, such as a plane shift spell. The demiplane resembles a stone cave roughly 1,000 feet in diameter with a ceiling 100 feet, blah, 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 blah. Okay, so this is a fun story. were really late level, but the one that got swallowed is the one that needed not get swallowed because he packed the biggest punch, and that was our barbarian. Okay, barbarian doesn't have any magic to get out of this stomach. Like, he doesn't do spells, no plan to travel, anything like that. Mad Hattress, if you're in the chat, correct me if I'm wrong. My memory serves me wrong. But from what I remember, Mad Hattress was a wizard and had the spell where you can summon your own, like, mansion. Like, you summon a door that goes to your own mansion, basically. I can't remember what that name of that spell is, but
I think it's Mordecai's Magnificent Mansion, isn't it?
something like that. Yeah, but the spell says that you just summon a doorway.
Right. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So she flew into the mouth of this creature, took the bite damage, which is 5d10 plus 9 force damage. Yeah, and got swallowed. And it's a wizard, so she didn't have very good hit points, survived just so she could summon that mansion door so he could go in. And he went in, and then she was able to teleport out with some other spell. And so basically threw him in the mansion, teleported out, and then got him back out of the stomach. And
that's really clever.
It really was. And I think that's how it went, something like that at least. Because, I mean, honestly, like, that was it. Like, there was no way for him to get out of that stomach because he knew, he's a barbarian. There's no magic.
Right, and normally when the barbarian gets swallowed, he just punches his way out. But this is an extra planar dimension within this creature. So,
yeah. But Astral Dreadnought, that was a lot of fun. I want to say they either like fought it, but like ran past it to get through the portal, or I can't remember if they actually defeated it. I don't think they did, but maybe, because they took a beating. That was a rough.
Oh, I'm sure. And what I pulled it up and I was just sort of refreshing my memory. This thing is gargantuan inside, but there's a caveat here. It has up behind it parentheses Titan, and whenever something is labeled as Titan, they're basically saying this thing is so big we can't give it a size category. We call it gargantuan because that's the biggest one we have. So the idea is you're fighting this creature, and it is beyond ridiculous, the size discrepancy here.
Mm-hmm.
Like, you're gonna run on this thing and it's gonna be like running on a moving continent is what it's basically doing. It's huge. It's enormous. So you can do some variation in there, but whenever something's labeled as Titan, it's crazy. Like, if you ever played the God of War video games, it's kind of like that. Or Shadow of Colossus.
Yeah.
So it's like you're on this creature, you're fighting this creature that just...
You're a flea on the back of the...
Yes, you are shadowed by this creature. So yeah, I could only imagine what that fight was like, just from the sheer scale of it.
Yeah, and luckily, I think this was a blessing. This happened during the COVID shutdown, like when it big time happened, and our group went to Roll20.net. And so I was able to make this really huge battle map that will look really cool. It's in the astral plane, so I made it look all outer spacey, and was able to get the scaling right with this creature and them and the boat, and so it worked out. And so whenever he went to the stomach, I just made another battle map that only he could see. And so he was, on his turn, he was just stuck in this dark room.
Right.
So I think that worked out that way. Yeah. I don't know. I think that's all I got, Trey. That's...
Yeah. I mean, I'm sure there are plenty of other monsters that we can do that. And if you're listening to this, please leave us a comment and say, hey, I think it would be great if you guys did an episode about this monster specifically, or, something like that. Because, we wouldn't mind doing more specific things. Because last week when we got monsters and all those books, we were like, this is such a big topic once you think about it, because there's so many. Hatcher said, the Dreadnought was a wonderful fight.
It was.
So yes, if you guys have a monster you think would be fun for us to kind of camp out on for an episode, shoot it to us. We might do it. A great way to do that is how, Travis?
Go find us on Patreon.
Yeah. Segue to
Patreon.com.
outro.
Yeah, patreon.com/twobeardsplay. A couple episodes ago, we had one of our patrons suggest a topic. We talked about homebrew stuff that we've put in our games, and it was a lot of fun. Probably my favorite episode so far. This one now I think is a close second. Yeah, so he was able to do that through Patreon. So whenever you suggest something on Patreon, it jumps to the front of the line and it gets top pick for our next topic. So, go do that. Thank you everybody for joining us live. If you want to join live, you can find us on tonight's our first time doing Facebook, YouTube, and Twitch. We're on all the platforms, Two Beards Play. But you could for sure find us over on YouTube to do the live show where you can comment and interact with us in real time. But if it's after the fact, you can find it on YouTube and you can find us on Spotify. So Favorite Terrain, look us up there. And give us a thumbs up or a review if you're on Spotify and show some love that way. Cody in chat. Facebook, that's why I can use chat.
Yeah, exactly. Yep. He also said, how about a Drow episode? I think Drow is on the wheel. Yeah, I'm pretty sure because it's like, that's a whole thing.
Yeah.
Plus, I know for a fact it is because it's technically one of the races. So, and if not, we'll get it in there. It'll be fine.
Yeah. So another thing, I haven't said this out loud to Trey, but I think it's kind of a given with the new books coming out for, what books are they? This is the space ones.
The Spelljammer. That's the one everyone's super excited about.
Yeah, so we'll be getting that when it comes out, and we'll probably dedicate a little episode just to that to talk about it. And
yeah, because it'll be fresh. Everyone wants to hear about Spelljammer.
Yeah, and I might actually. I know Jeremy's probably going to get a physical copy because he gets physical copy of everything. I might see if I can borrow it just to kind of show it.
Yeah, because that is actually like a 3-book combo, I think.
Yeah,
because Spelljammer is such a big thing. It's like you've got your player's handbook, your dungeon master guide, and your monster manual in space.
Matt Hattress in the chat had to pause for a second, so a few minutes behind, but yes, had to get real creative to try to get him back out. We were not strong enough. We ran as soon as we could. Yeah.
Way to be smart players.
Yeah. Yeah, because another thing the Dreadnought has is a cone of anti-magic. So wherever it's looking, magic does not exist in that.
I threw a creature to my players with that before on a much smaller scale, but it was tripping them up, man. They were like, "What the heck? Like none of our magic is working." And then they realized whichever way the creature is looking, you can't do magic. I loved it. It was so much fun. Yeah. Anyway,
but yeah, go find us on all the things. We're also on Instagram and TikTok, and we have a Discord channel that we, that's usually where we'll update anything first, and you'll get notifications.
That's also where you can apply to. That's also where you can apply to be in the next season of Table Scraps if it ever happens. So do that.
It will. It will. All right. So that's it. We're Two Beards Play. I'm Travis.
Picker Will.
Oh, the Picker Will. Did you send it to me?
Yeah, I did. Like before you sign off, we gotta pick next week's topic. Hold on.
Is it on Facebook?
Yeah, I sent it to you in the Facebook.
Okay.
Thing. So yeah, I was like, whoa.
Wait.
Not yet.
Come on, Facebook.
We gotta know what to prepare for at the last minute.
Okay. What is it? Is that? Yeah. Okay. All right. You ready?
Yep.
That music gets me every time. I'm like, what is this? There, I muted it. What we got? Grungs.
Oh, okay. All right. So here's a race.
Yeah.
The little frogmen.
Love Grungs.
Yes, which means we will be making a Grung character next week.
Nice. All right.
Okay.
Well,
I'm all about it.
look forward to that next week. And we're Two Beers Play. I'm Travis.
I'm Trey.
And we're out.